Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Storm Watch. 10 minutes before the top of the hour this morning, I'm Marshall Cease. The Storm Watch this morning is sponsored by Rayovac. We'll let you know where the severe weather potential is today and where the action is this morning, thunderstorm-wise, after our tropical update. We'll look at that first. Tropical Storm Alex, a thing of the past, but we're on our way now to increased activity in the Atlantic Basin. September 10th is the peak of the season, as you probably know if you watch the Weather Channel with any regularity at all. And during the month of August, just about anywhere in the Atlantic out toward the Cape Verde Islands, we can expect some kind of development, if there's going to be any development at all, because this becomes much more climatologically favorable than it is in the month of June or July. If you remember, Alex just hit a formidable hostile environment out here and was unable to make it. It's fine by us, isn't it? Alex now kind of interacting with an upper level low right now. This is actually partly the remnants of Alex, partly an upper level low, and partly just a general area of low pressure. Does that mean that it could develop over time? It does, but it is not going to impact anyone anytime soon. It would be very slow to develop, if it were to develop at all. This system has been sitting around for the last few days. It'd have to get its act together, develop some convection, and start getting some surface circulation involved as well. So not a threat today. There's another area off the Carolina coastline that we've been watching, the Tropical Prediction Center has been watching, the National Hurricane Center, for the possibility of development. Nothing here. It's a low-pressure system on an old front, but it's sitting right over the Gulf Stream. So anytime you have that happen, you have some very warm water, you think that maybe there could be some development, and indeed there could be, but again, it would be over time. So it's just an area that will continue to be monitored. Gulf of Mexico, nothing is going on here either. Thunderstorms that developed along the old stationary boundary, now or the old cold front, now a stationary boundary, fired up again overnight, as they have over the last several nights, but no problems here. Let's get a little closer to it for you. You can't hardly even pick up the low-pressure system sitting off the coast of the Carolinas. What it's meant for the Outer Banks is we've got some fairly significant rain over the last 24 hours, about an inch of rain. But that's about all that it's doing right now. Again, the Gulf of Mexico is looking like it's in pretty good shape. This is the area that, or one of the areas that we'll continue to monitor. That's the one that's kind of between Bermuda and the Bahamas and Puerto Rico, but it's no threat to any land areas right now. Cuba, the Dominican Republic, nothing here except some showers over the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, and toward the Dominican Republic, and that's about it. There's just nothing of a tropical nature going on here. There's a couple of waves, one moving toward the Leeward Islands. It's going to bring some squally weather to the islands here, but tropical storm formation is not likely. Another area moving eastward, this is a little further to the south with some showers and thunderstorms attendant to it. This is not forecast to become a tropical storm anytime soon either. Off the coast of Africa, another wave moved yesterday. This one would have to get its act together before it would become a significant feature. So good news is in the Atlantic Basin, yes, there are more things to watch, but no, there's no tropical storm formation that is imminent, as forecast by the National Hurricane Center and the Tropical Prediction Center. Now, another good news out in the Pacific. Hurricane Estelle is now Tropical Storm Estelle. 1,240 miles west-southwest of Cabo San Lucas, centered at 18.4 north and 128.6 west. Its winds are down to 70 miles per hour now, and it's moving west about 16 miles per hour. It is forecast to continue to move to the west, but it's also forecast to continue to weaken as it spins out over cooler water and areas that are not climatologically favorable for continued strengthening. We have another tropical storm, a typhoon, and this is Typhoon Otto. Otto has made landfall over Taiwan. Its winds at about 75 to 80 miles per hour this morning, headed west-northwest. Looks like will also influence mainland China, and we'll get reports out of here as the day goes on today for American interests in that area. broad area of clouds, showers, and thunderstorms over the lower 48 states. That could mean some good rains for Texas in need of rain, but it means it's going to be rough traveling up in the upper Midwest. No severe weather is expected today, but these strong storms could still pack some walloping winds.
All this atmospheric energy coming together.
Drama, passion, suspense, tropospheric undulations. Every night on Weather Center PM.
This program was sponsored by Rayovac Rechargeable Alkaline.
Batteries.
Video games don't just blast through your batteries, they blast through your money. That's why you should arm yours with Rayovac Maximum Alkaline. They pack long-lasting alkaline power but cost less.
How about a little one-on-one?
Rayovac.
We have been seeing thunderstorms roll close to Dallas, helping to keep the temperatures down just a bit there. Unfortunately, in the tropics, more active weather, especially in the Pacific, where very heavy and flooding rains are affecting China. Now here's Dr. Steve Lyons with all the details on our tropical update.
Well, thank you, Kristen, and welcome to the Tropical Update. We've got good news for you in the Atlantic. You'll be pleased with this tropical update. We don't have much in the way of tropical cyclone formation at all going on in the Atlantic Basin, which is great news. Here's our satellite loop, infrared satellite loop, sensing the temperature of the cloud tops here. We have a tropical wave moving toward the Windward Islands and Leeward Islands here. We've had some shower activity up in here. Now it's primarily associated with an upper level low. Weak little low off the coast of the Carolinas there that we're still looking at, and some isolated showers over the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, but really not much to look at there. If we zoom in here, we can see this upper level low right in here. Not much going on in this particular region of the basin here. Just a weak upper level low over the Bahamas, scattered thunderstorms over extreme northeastern portion of the Bahamas. The rest of them are fair weather today. Now in the Gulf of Mexico, we still have very light winds there and a weak trough of low pressure up in the northern Gulf of Mexico, and that's what's associated with this scattered thunderstorm activity there. Unfortunately, none of that thunderstorm activity is going to get into Texas the next day or two. Now as we go down here into the Caribbean, you can see virtually cloudless other than a few stratocumulus clouds down here. Very fast trade winds. If you're out there sailing, you know that, or if you have been out there, 20 to 25 knots, which is about 25 to 30 miles per hour. And those fast trade winds are converging into lighter winds along the Central American coast, piling up and rising and producing this thunder shower activity down here. But that activity is not expected to develop into anything the next 24 to 36 hours. Now we had been looking at this low off the coast of the Carolinas the last day and a half. Let's sort of zoom in on that and see what we've got going on this morning there. You can still see low center right about there, and some thunderstorms flaring up in the Gulf Stream around that surface low pressure center. Still forecast to remain in that general area, but it's still overridden by upper level southerly winds and southwesterly flow, and still not detached from that mid-latitude trough axis there. So we're not expecting development from it in the near future anyway, but we'll keep an eye on it for you. If you're out there boating off the Cape Hatteras area, of course, there's some fairly brisk winds out here, 20 to 25 knots in some areas. Near the low center, it's actually lighter winds of about 10 to 15 knots. Now, as we go farther out into the Atlantic, we had been watching a tropical wave that had moved off the coast a few days back. It was a big one. It's since contracted with the trade wind flow into a rather sharper trough axis. Here it is right in through here. The top edge of it, we've got some thunderstorm activity with it there, but the tail edge of it over in here, we've got thunderstorms now affecting the Windward and Leeward Islands up here, and eventually some of the shower activity will probably reach Puerto Rico in about a day or a day and a half, but it'll be minimal in activity. But none of this is expected to develop, and no signs of circulation of forming a surface low in this tropical wave at this time. Now, as we go farther out off of Africa, we can see that we've had a few tropical waves. There was one that we had been monitoring right in here that had been moving to the west. The convection or thunderstorm activity associated with it has really diminished in time, so we don't see anything out there. So everything is great news in the Atlantic for the next few days. We don't expect any significant development, but things can change, so we'll have to keep an eye on it. Now, out here in the Pacific Basin, we've been watching Tropical Storm Estelle. It was a hurricane. Now we're going to Tropical Storm. It continues to weaken, and all the stratocumulus cloud you see up here is coming in, and it has a very stable layer, and that stable layer comes in and just chokes off the convection or thunderstorm activity. And you can see the center is up here, just a little bit of thunderstorm left, and that's not going to affect anybody the next 24 hours. Most of the swell associated with the coastline of Baja California and Southern California, that activity has already been generated and going toward that coast. Nothing is going to happen in this area at all. And you can see farther down into the tropical Pacific here, we still see some activity down here, but ill-organized thunderstorm areas, to say the least. Now, out in the western Pacific, we had Typhoon Otto. Now it's a tropical storm. It ran over Typhoon late last night, and it's forecast to move on shore here of China here, now near Fuchao, in the next 6 to 12 hours. The thing about this is it's producing a lot of thunderstorm activity in here, and this area has already had a lot of flooding, so this is going to be hit even more by local flooding. Our general rule we can sort of use as a guideline for tropical activity is if you divide the speed, 100 by the speed of motion, you get the rainfall. In this case, we're looking at about 8 to 10 inches. Stay tuned to the Weather Channel. We'll give you the latest.
Dark clouds have a silver lining in drought-stricken Texas. Will more rain bring relief to parched areas? Find out on Weather Center after your local forecast.
This program was sponsored by Master Locks. Master Locks are tough under fire.
Ooh, nice swing, Alice! Happy putting out! That kick
Quite a bit of heavy rain across the country. One spot that's happy to see it is in the Dallas metro area, and we'll check that radar in just a couple of minutes on this storm watch. But first we want to get a look at your tropical update, and Steve Lyons is standing by to tell you all about what's going on in the tropics.
Well, thanks, Jill. And the good thing is not too much tropical cyclone-wise is going on in the Atlantic right now. Let's have a look at our long loop here and see what we're talking about. We've been looking at an area of disturbed weather up here, a low-pressure center, and also one off the coast of the Carolinas. Right now, this low-pressure center at the surface is being completely dominated by a very strong upper-level low, and that's producing some thunderstorms in there right now as well. Let's zoom in there and see what we've got going on there and elsewhere. Here's the upper low right in here, and you can see some thunderstorms there. We don't expect much to develop in the next couple days underneath this system. The weak surface signature is very, very weak indeed. Now, out in the Gulf of Mexico, we have a ridge of high pressure that's way south of where it's normally supposed to be. Normally it's sitting up over the southern United States, and the flow is all out of the southeast. We've got westerly flow into this weak surface trough in the northern Gulf of Mexico, and very high pressure to the south of it, and that's producing all this nice weather down here. In the Caribbean, we've had a very beautiful day out there. Strong winds in the central Caribbean on the order of 20 to 25 miles an hour, and converging into the weaker winds along the coast, producing the shower activity. We don't expect that to do anything tropical cyclone development-wise the next 24 hours at all, but should continue to produce some shower activity along the Central American coast there. Now, as we go up here, get a little bit closer look at what we were looking at off the Carolina coast here. We'd seen a low-pressure center that we thought would hang around the last yesterday, and would hang around the last 24 hours and would continue to hang around another 24 hours. And there it is there, still sitting there. Nothing in the way of tropical development evident right now, and the pressures still remain relatively high there, around 1,013, 14 millibars. Some breezy northeasterly flow in there. We also see another little low-pressure center starting to spin up here down off the Georgia coast. But again, nothing in the way of tropical development expected out of either one of those systems right now. We'll keep an eye on it, though, because whenever we have these low-pressure centers and thunderstorm activity over warm water like the Gulf Stream here, we have to watch out for it this time of year. Now, out in the central Atlantic, night is starting to fall. We had a tropical wave that had moved off the African coast a few days ago. It looked like a big one, and we're going to monitor it carefully for you. There was not much convection with it. Well, it's still moving, and now the axis of it has become rather disorganized and leaning The northern portion of the axis is up here and the southern portion is down here. The reason for that is the trade winds are faster down here than up here, so it's starting to turn over, lean back. We have some shower activity up in here associated with it and some thunderstorms, and quite a few thunderstorms and cloudiness associated with it moving over the windward and leeward islands up here. They will continue to move to the west and affect Puerto Rico probably early tomorrow morning with a few showers that normally wouldn't occur there. Elsewhere in the central Atlantic, not much going on here at all. We have some showers down in here associated with this little swirl of clouds, but not expected to develop at all right now. Farther off toward the African coast, we see a big area of thunderstorms getting ready to move off the coast. We've seen a series of these all summer long so far that have moved off the coast, and so far nothing has happened. We'll keep an eye on this next tropical wave as it comes through. Of course, this time of year, August 1 to 10, we typically see on the order of about 50 storms per 100 years. That's one every other year this time of year. So we don't necessarily expect on average to have one every year. So don't think we're in good shape or bad shape yet. But the following 10-day period here, you can see we go up to 73 storms. So we're now almost up to, on average, one storm a year here, about 3/4 of a storm if you take the average there. So be prepared at all times and be prepared for the heart of the hurricane season, which is yet to come. Out in the Pacific, we had been tracking Tropical Storm Estelle. Here are the latest coordinates on that with the winds of 50 miles per hour. It still moves west at 12. But the latest satellite imagery on it indicates that that stratocumulus cloud that's being dragged into it on the west side is rapidly eating away at it. And this system is going to be very, very weak very quickly and almost gone by tomorrow probably. Elsewhere in the tropical Pacific, we see a lot of thunderstorm activity here, and in this area here, south of Manzanillo, a potential for development in the next 24 hours. But we'll keep an eye on it for you. It tends to be moving west right now and should not affect the coast of Mexico. Well, let's see, Jill, what Jill's got going on for you in Texas right now.
All right, thanks very much, Steve. We are talking rain in Texas, something we haven't seen much of recently, but welcome relief from the heat wave. Some needed rain, 2 to 3 inches, has already been estimated by Doppler radar. And we have basically almost a stationary batch of rain right over Interstate 35 north of Waco. Not much severe weather here, a couple of reports, a few more in Florida. We'll show you all of those coming up on Weather Center next. Stay tuned.
We're finally seeing rain in areas of drought-stricken Texas as well as parts of the upper Midwest. Find out where and when rain is likely on Weather Center after your local forecast.
Sun is rising.
Storms continue to pound folks in Indiana and Illinois with some heavy rain. Flood warnings continue in central Florida. Hi, I'm Dave Schwartz, but this edition of Storm Watch begins with our tropical update. And of course, we've had one tropical storm already this season. That one's gone. That was Alex. You might remember that from late last week and this weekend. That was eaten alive by that area of low pressure. See the spin to the clouds right in there? That ate it up. That came, that kind of drew it northward. Southerly winds here aloft, sheared it apart at the top, and whatever was left of it just kind of rotated around that upper level low, and it is gone. But there are other areas of concern here in the tropics. There's that upper low, by the way. And anytime we see this, we know that anything that might come tracking in from the tropics will be eaten up once again, as long as this is here. And this is forecast to be here for at least the next several days. So that's good news for us. But on the other side of the upper low, there's an area of persistent shower activity right here. Now, you might remember the cold front that blasted through the northeast early this weekend into Atlanta Friday night, sank all the way into Florida. Well, that front has stalled out. And it is defined generally by these clouds here, east to west, back to the area of low pressure in North Carolina, and then right down into central Florida, the focal point of some more rain here tonight. Well, this area of low pressure is pesky. It's sitting over the Gulf Stream or very close to it, and the upper level winds may grow a little bit lighter. Know that they're pretty strong out of the southwest here. The further south we go, they're generally lighter, though there's another upper level low right in here. So we're watching this. There's a a very slight chance of development, but just so you know, we're watching it. It's close to the coast. If anything should develop, of course, we wouldn't have too long to react. But if anything does develop, it would be very slow for that to happen. So I'm not worried about it. I'm just aware of it and keeping a close eye on it for you. Then the cold front, or trough of low pressure, whatever it's called at this point, out into the Gulf of Mexico, where there are showers. And there, the upper level winds are lighter than they are even off the east coast. So there's an outside chance of something developing here. Be advised that a cold front is an area of low pressure, strung out. Winds coming in from a southerly direction and perhaps a northeasterly direction here. So there's an area of convergence at the surface, and something can spin up very easily out here over the warm waters of the tropical Gulf of Mexico. Aside from that, we are quiet. Beautiful weather across the Caribbean, the islands too, perfect weather for cruising. A weak tropical wave is making its way through the islands. It looks like a nice sunny day in the Caribbean islands, at least these string of islands. But some showers will be moving into Puerto Rico late tonight and tomorrow. There's another tropical wave, and that's it, all the way back into Africa. Our next tropical wave getting ready to come off the coast, apparently put down some heavy rain here in the sub-Saharan region known as the Sahel region. Got a big area of high pressure that extends out about a third of the way across the ocean. Then there's one of these, well, there's a trough of low pressure right here. Those swirls to the clouds, one over northeast Florida and another one right in here. That would block anything. It would block it, just kind of eat it up. Just kind of eat it up right in there. Something could sneak under the bottom, but even here we've got some southerly winds. And these southerly winds blow across the track. Everything's moving from east to west here in the tropics. So these strong southerly winds would shear it apart. Tropical development occurs when the winds are generally from the same direction all the way up, from the surface all the way up. Well, that's the Atlantic. Here's the Pacific, and there's nothing to worry about here either. A dying tropical storm, Estelle, 50 mile per hour maximum sustained winds. There it is. It's moving over cooler waters, water temperatures in the middle 70s, and that's slightly too cool to sustain a tropical system. Notice some high thin clouds making their way all the way up to around Eureka, California. This one has generated some high surf on the southern beaches of California from Point Conception down to San Diego. And this will weaken as it moves toward and out of the picture here toward Hawaii. Another area of tropical weather may get going, some organization southwest of Acapulco. And our last stop is China, where a typhoon is hitting shore right now. It's a minimal typhoon, 75 mile per hour sustained winds, Typhoon Otto. Here in the United States, we've had some rough stuff, some thunderstorms from the Ohio Valley back into Texas, cutting the heat wave and starting to cut the drought. And here in New Mexico, we've had flooding and tornadoes in the Ohio Valley. More on that next.
Find out who's seeing rain and who's trying to beat the heat. We'll update current conditions nationwide and look to Wednesday ahead on Weather Center after your local forecast.
Last year, Americans spent over $2.5 billion on products for their backs.
Here's a nice item.
Why is this market so large?
Good morning. It's time now for Storm Watch. And on